think I'm going to change my channel name to Tom's Lawn Care Emporium. Hello my friends, and this is still Tom's Tinkering and Adventures. Even though I have been working on a lot of lawn equipment. I mentioned in a video previously that I started sort of a neighborhood lawn equipment exchange where I work on lawnmowers, weed eaters, whatever. You bring me your old one and I'll give you one that operates, your old broken one, and I'll give you one that operates, or I can fix them for whatever, for free, basically is what I've been doing. Basically just charging the price of the parts if I have to buy any parts. So I had a weed eater, a gas one that I got going, and some folks brought over an electric weed eater. Yeah, I say, can you get this one going? And if I plug it in and it doesn't work, I really can't do anything on the spot. So they picked up the gas one. I spent about $15 or $20, I can't remember, whatever it cost, that's what I charged them for it. They were extremely happy. And they left me their electric weed eater here. It's a Homelite string trimmer. There's not a lot that can really go wrong with these things. Generally, your switch, you have a switch inside of this housing, and then the motor inside of this housing. So those are your basic things that can go wrong. The switch is very easy to test. You can either just open up this end and test it right in there with a multimeter, just test continuity, or you can open up this end because the continuity is going to go through to that end as well. It's just a little bit easier to do it up here. So I already tested this one. I tested the switch was good. When I got it, this entire section was completely covered in grass trimmings, as you would expect. But the part of the problem with that is that when the grass and weeds and that sort of stuff covers all this area, then your motor overheats. 9 times out of 10, the motors on these don't burn out. There is a thermal fuse in there that goes out. Now, a Homelite trimmer like this, brand new at the Home Depot, costs $39. So hardly anyone is ever going to work on one, and they'll end up tossing them away. Well, I found on my favorite online home delivery site, Scamazon, that you can purchase these thermal fuses. I purchased 5 of them for $8.99. So that means that these are less than $2 each delivered to my door. So we are going to try to replace the thermal fuse on here. And if that fixes it, then we're good to go. And I will have 4 more available to fix the next 4 electric string trimmers that come through my door. So let me set up the camera here. I'll take this apart. I'll show you where it's at. We'll get to work with my nemesis here, the soldering iron. I am not a great electrical repair guy, but I can hold my own, I guess, is about the best I could say. I need to make a little room up here. I'm working on a shadow box for a friend. So let me slide this out of the way. We'll get set up and we'll see you back here on the workbench. Okay, here we are with the case opened up on this thing, and right there you can see the thermal fuse. And like I said, if you overheat these things, that's what goes out, and people think that the motor is bad, but it is not. So what you need to do is peel that away. Now the way that we can test that that's bad, let me bring out one of these new ones here. We'll show you if I can open this package. I don't know how all the rest of y'all feel about Amazon. I know I kind of make fun of them a little bit, but man, it's nice to order something, not have to leave the house. You can compare prices, and it'll be shipped there in a couple days. So here's our thermal fuse. I'm going to turn my multimeter on, here. Hopefully you can see it. I have it on the continuity setting, so if you're not familiar with continuity, what that tests is to see if you have flow through a piece of equipment. You can test for shorts. And what I like about this setting on this multimeter, excuse me, is that it has an audible alarm. So we'll connect it to that end and to that end, and we have continuity through this thermal fuse. Now on this one, we'll test the lead coming off the back of it here, and we'll move this a little bit so you can see, and we'll test it right into here, and we have no continuity. So that means that that fuse is blown. So that means when I pull the trigger at the top of this thing, the current's flowing down this line, but it's not flowing down this line, which is obviously not going to let the motor run. So I need to strip all this, whatever this is, heat shrink or something off of here. We need to strip that off of there, and then try to get busy hooking this one up in its place. So I'm going to clean that up. We'll come right back. So the hardest part so far has been getting that heat shrink off of there. In the process, I managed to cut a little bit of this wire off. But looking at it, you can see it's not just soldered together. They've got like these crimps on here. So I think rather than fighting my terrible soldering skills, I'm going to try just crimping this together. And another issue that I'm having is that I know this thing is a thermal fuse, and it says here it's at 100 and I'm guessing this is 157 Celsius. I don't know, I might have to look it up, but I know that it that's pretty dang hot actually, 157 Celsius. I don't know if that's what that means, but I know that heat is what causes this thing to blow. So I'm concerned with putting heat shrink over this. I can't leave it not heat shrink because I don't want it to short out against anything else. So I do need to get some heat shrink on it. I'm concerned about that, but perhaps I can just put heat shrink on it and not heat it up, or heat it up very gently. We'll have to test it after I'm done. So I'm going to find a couple of crimps, and we'll crimp this together. Make sure we get the heat shrink on before we crimp it, because that would be funny. You can't get it on after the fact. And then we'll test it. Okay, so I've already crimped this end on. Right there, you can see it. And I slide this heat shrink all the way down there. I got a crimp on this side. And let's see if I can fight that in there with it. I guess it's in there, huh? And we'll see if I can crimp that together. And not too shabby. So the idea is I'm gonna hopefully just heat shrink the ends of this one, and then slide this one over that, and then heat shrink it way at this end. I think that's what I'll do. I don't know. Maybe I'll just heat shrink that one there first, a little tiny bit. Slide this over, then heat shrink this end of it. Let me get my heat gun and I'll be right back. Okay, so that's shrunk down a little bit. Let's slide this one over it, hopefully. go. And then I'll heat shrink that end, which is far away from that thermal fuse. Now the thermal fuse is right there where my fingers are, so I don't really want to hit too much heat there, but I do have insulation here. Let me just wave it close. Okay, so that's a little bit, shrunk it down a little bit. Now I got to move this stuff all kind of around, try to get it back here. We'll zip tie it down again like it was, and we'll put it back together and test this thing. Well, red zip ties are the fastest, so that's what I used. Hopefully we got everything cleaned up. Feed everything back in here. This has got a little zigzag pattern here so that it clears everything. And we'll put our other housing on top of here. I'm gonna put the screws in here and then we'll test it. All right, I got a cord and I've got a trimmer here. Oh, hopefully, let's plug this in and cross our fingers. What do you think? It sounds like we're back in business. Well, I'll be honest, I've never fixed a thermal fuse on a string trimmer before, so thank you very much for joining me on this. I learned something, hopefully y'all did. If you got one of these things, like I said, that's $40 for one, but why throw it in the trash? A couple bucks, you can fix it, and now I got 4 of those thermal fuses. I could fix 4 more of these things. Save this unit from going to the trash, and learned something along the way. I mean, heck, if you don't have a soldering iron or some tools, you could buy $40 worth of tools and fix it. Then you'd have your string trimmer and you'd have $40 worth of tools. So now, that one's going into the donate pile here. And hopefully I'll get another one soon. I wouldn't mind getting a couple more because that was a pretty easy fix. So, anyway, actually what I'll do is I will put the Amazon link for these thermal fuses. Hopefully y'all can read that. But I'll put the Amazon link in the description so that if anyone is having this same issue, you can order these up. Take care of yourself, fix your stuff. Get that feeling of self-reliance, and being able to take care of yourself is an amazing thing. Being able to fix something that was destined for the landfill is an amazing feeling. At least it feels good for me. So thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.